Hey guys, I'm Ethan Moore from Stockholm Supply. So today what I'm going to be doing is kind of what I've done a seminar on recently, but this is going to be kind of a condensed version. I'm going to be making the perfect bowl blank on a bandsaw. And once I got these blanks cut, I'm actually going to throw them on the lathe, and I'm going to show you how much better a bowl blank will balance compared to just a square block, just for interest's sake. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I've got a little piece of apple set up in my little ripper, and I'm just going to line it up. You can almost see if you come a little closer here that I've got the blade lined up with the pith here. I'm going to do my best. This log isn't perfectly straight, but I'm going to try to cut that pith out, and that's where a lot of the cracks are going to stem from. So yeah, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to split this log right down the middle with my little ripper, and I'm going to try to cut through the pith here. Okay. Alright, we're just going to take this block, or this half log, out of the ripper here. We get rid of the ripper. Set that there, get rid of my track. And then I'm just going to determine where I want to split these in half here to make a couple blanks. Doesn't matter too much, but we'll go right down the center here. My 4 future blanks here. So I got these 2 with the little limbs sticking at the end of them, and then I got these 2 which are fairly even. So these guys here, I'm going to use one of them and I'm going to cut it with the simple circle cutter. These 2 here, I'm going to leave one and then I'm going to cut the other with the round ripper, and then we're going to throw them on the lathe and we're going to compare the pieces. So first things, with these guys, I just got to find the center on the bottom so I know where to mount the lathe, and also the simple circle cutter. So I'm just going to quickly mark this along here. Now this particular piece I'm marking right now, if we look at it, it's got a pretty sizable crack right there. So this isn't something I'm actually going to turn, but this will be a good example just to get an idea of the bowl blank we're going to make. So now let me get the simple circle cutter out and I'll show you how that works. Now the simple circle cutter is really nice, especially, I guess I'll use this guy, if you have wood that is flat on the bottom. That's where this guy really excels here. So I've got my center mark here. Let me get my drill and let me just drill a little pilot hole in the center. Okay, and then the little pin from the simple circle cutter will go right in that little pilot hole, just like that. So that's how you line that up. Now, if you look at the bottom of the simple circle cutter, if you guys haven't seen this before, there's a series of holes and a series of markings along here from 0 all the way to 12. And then right here, where my blade is lined up, you got 1, 2, all the way 13 or 14 here. So right now I have it lined up at the 2. So if I put this in the 6, 2 plus 6 would be 8. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this bowl blank as big as I can. Let's start out with the 6 right here. That'll just slide in that hole like that. So obviously that is far too big, but if we go over to the number 4 spot, that's going to be real close here. Now, if you want to get your fine adjustment, there's a nut right here, or a bolt right here, and a bolt right here. And I can loosen these, and I can have a full range of movement anywhere along this position here. And that'll give me my really close results here. So what I'll do, I'm going to get this right on as best I can. Loosen these off. And let me slide this jig in right about there, and we'll tighten that back up. Okay, so let's make a cut. So on this one, I got my stop on set on the back here, And what will happen is as I go in, I'll hit that stop, and that's how I get the position of my blade. You want the pivot point, let me take this back out so you can see. You want the pivot point, the center of this hole, to be in line with the front of the teeth. And when you get the jig like this, it will go through how to set that up exactly. So we'll set it up right there. So that right there is our little blank. So that's a really nice little piece. And you can see that there. Now the problem would be with this jig, it's not an issue in this case, but if the bottom of this guy wasn't flat, let's see if I have one here. Actually, that blank right there. Kate, can you grab it for me? There you go.
Doing my best.
One-handed. If that was cut off with a chainsaw, in this case that was just split, oftentimes a bowl blank would be cut off with a chainsaw, and that will not end up very flat in the bottom. That's going to rock. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, like my blade drift videos, I'll link one at the top here. You know when that blade gets bound, like when that wood rocks and binds that blade, that's where the whole blade drift issue stems from. So when we have this blank like this, that's maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, a little less flat on the bottom, we have a different jig called the round ripper that is ideally suited for stuff like this. Let me grab that now. So we'll get rid of this guy, throw the same track I had on there as my little ripper, and the round ripper will go right on top. Now this looks totally, utterly different than the simple sword cutter, but it's very similar principle, except you got not only a little point, a pivot point on the bottom, but you also have a screw on the top. So the idea is you get your blank. So we're going to work with these two blanks now. We're going to get our blank. We're going to throw it on the bottom here. Well, I need my little spacers. One second here, let me grab this. Right here. I use these little spacers to make sure it's flat in the bottom if your piece is actually flat. We're going to move this up, we're going to set that on there, and we're going to find where I think approximately the center is. Sometimes it makes sense, most of the time, to drill a little 1/4 inch hole there to get you started. I didn't grab my drill, or that size bit, so I'm just going to jam it in there as best I can. This is a piece of apple, so it is extremely hard, but we should be fine here. Okay, so once you got that screw in there, lift that back up, set that on your pin. So what I've done is I've got a screw in the top, pin in the bottom. This is totally independent of the bottom of the piece here, so that could be as unflat or non-flat as you want. Unflat is a word. Don't give me that look, Kate. So you're glaring at me. So yeah, this will be set up nicely there. So you can see how it spins on that shaft. Now the other neat thing is, because I'm holding by two different points, I can tilt my table. Now if you're a churner, you can understand why that would be kind of a cool thing. That would be less material you would need to remove with your lathe, potentially leaving more material to do something else. So this one's a little bit pretty slick to get your diameter. You just slide that in and we will lock that up right about there. Okay, so let's make a cut here quick. So again, that stops at the back, so the pivot point is in line with the front of the teeth. A couple of cool things are going to happen here. Number one, I'm going to be cutting a perfect circle. Number two, that little screw hole on the top, it's actually the perfect center to my perfect circle. Not only on the top, but also the bottom. And three, look where my hand is up here. I'm Hopefully not anywhere close to the blade. Okay. So that right there would be my bowl blank that I cut with the round ripper. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take both these blanks I cut and both blanks I didn't cut, throw them on my lathe, and we'll see at what point, what speed they start to vibrate. Okay, so we got our two blanks cut. We got the round ripper blank and then a simple circle cutter blank. I'm going to start with the simple circle cutter blank with the corresponding half log. We're going to put that on the lathe, see at what point she starts to vibrate, what RPM, and then we're going to do the same with the blank we cut. So I just got a spur drive in my lathe here right now. There's lots of different ways you can mount that. I'm just using that for ease of or speed. But if you have a chuck, a lot of guys would use like a woodworm screw. Let me find that here. Woodworm screw like this, a very common way. Or even you can get a spur drive that will go in that chuck, or a faceplate like what I have here, or you can get a faceplate ring which will just attach to your chuck. Plus many other options, but those are the, I guess, the main ones that most guys would use. Yeah, I just got my spur in here, live center. This is just going to be a quick way for me to mount it. Not necessarily the best way, but the quickest. So I got my X here to find my center. That'll give me a decent center there. Anyways, I'm going to put that on my spur, slide this in. There. Lock that up. And there we go. Okay, so we got that mounted there. I've got this at the highest RPM right now on the belt speed. I may need to lower it. We'll see. These blanks don't look too bad. But yeah, so we're at 290 RPM. Let's turn this on here. Okay, she's fine. So as we creep this up.
Can you cover it so that we can see that number, like shadow?
Yeah, there you go. So there's 400. Start to feel a little bit of vibration. Now when you're watching in the camera, this is 600 here. You're going to see the vibration on the other end of the lathe because I don't have any weight. This isn't bolted down. So once this gets going, that's 800 RPM there. This is 1,000. 1,200. I don't know if you can tell, but she's really starting to go here. Let's see how we can go. Okay. Yeah. So about 1,250, 1,300. That's when she starts getting a little sketchy here. Let's bring her down back down to 1,000. So 1,000 is good. Okay. Let's do the same little experiment with my other piece here. Okay.
I got nervous.
You get nervous. Most sure wouldn't be terribly nervous by that there, but it's okay. Alright, so again, beautiful thing about this is that little center point, that's where my simple circle cutter centered was. That is the exact center of my circle. Now this piece here, you can see is going to be off balance regardless. It's got a lot more wood over here than right here, but it'll be a step in the right direction. So again, find your center. And right about there. Lock that up. We are in good shape. So same thing. Bring her back down to 290 and see if this one's any better. It may not be because this one actually was a little bit more uneven. Okay, so 500, 700.
We can't see that number.
860. There's 1,000. There's 1,200. That's when it started getting sketchy on the last one. So 14, 15, 16, 17. All right, 18 is your number. Bring that back down. All right. So that's 1,800 RPM versus 1,300 on those two pieces. Now let's do, these ones are a little bit worse, so this will be kind of a better example. And not that this is going to make a huge difference. This isn't really the reason you're going to cut a bowl blank. You're going to cut a bowl blank because it's a whole lot easier on your body rather than having to take those corners off with your gouge, doing it with a bandsaw. But this is just another kind of neat little advantage that you're going to have here. Okay, again, we got our center. We're going to go in here. Bring this fella up. And right like that. We're good. Okay, let's go back down to 290 and we'll do the same thing. Okay. So we're all good there. There's 500. I already feel it a little bit. 725. Yeah. You can probably hear that too. She's really starting to vibrate here. All right, right there, about 1,000 RPM. You can really see it on the other end of the lathe. That's where the vibration will show up the most. Okay. So we'll say 1,000 on that guy there. This one should be the biggest difference, because that was a heavier blank, and especially uneven with that limb. Okay, so now this one I should mention a little bit more. It's kind of interesting. Not only do I have my center point in the bottom, but I also have my center point in the top. So I know exactly where to put my spur as well as my live center. So I got the perfect axis through my bowl, which is the only time I got that. This is the only blank I have that with, because of the way the round ripper will mount. So we're going to go in there, my bottom hole, bring this guy up, and we'll lock her up. Okay, so there's my blank, and that's my tapered bowl blank. Again, 290. Let's see how fast we can go. There's 500. There's 750. There's 1,000. So I have a little vibration, but now it's smooth right out. There's 1,400. There's 1,500. 16, 17, 18, 19, starting to get a little sketchy. 2,000. We'll leave her at 2,000 here. So about 2,000 RPM, so nearly double the speed you could safely churn at. Not that you would churn it at that RPM, but just kind of gives you an idea. So that's kind of a fun little experiment. I don't know if you guys have ever tried that before, but it just kind of gives you an idea of how much nicer churning a bowl blank is compared to churning just a simple half log. And there's a number of ways to cut a bowl blank. There's a number of jigs like the simple circle cutter and the round ripper that we sell that work really nicely to cut your bowl blanks. The round ripper though, the real advantage of it is your bottom does not need to be flat. And oftentimes when we're making a bowl blank, it's not flat. So that's a pretty cool little thing. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can email me at info@stockroomsupply.com or just comment on the video. Now, if you want to see future videos, make sure you subscribe and hit the little bell button. Thanks for watching.